Hello, back with Cooking with Mrs. Lanham. Today I'm going to be making nut butter crunch, or often known just to my friends as your toffee or your candy. I had a team leader many years ago teach us how to make this recipe, and I don't know a single person who does not love it. So let's get started. Our ingredients: salt, sugar, pecan. I bought pecan chips to save on time of crushing them. Butter, Pam, water, that's what's in the measuring cup, and of course, the Toll House semi-sweet morsels. Now the equipment I use is I will be using that measuring cup because that's where the water goes. Right now, back here is a cookie sheet, and I save it only for this candy. I don't want anything else made on it. So when I pack away all my equipment for this candy, I pack away those cookie sheets so they don't get lost. All right, the next thing I'm gonna need is a saucepan. And this is where I'll be melting the butter. I'll be melting the ingredients. All right, then the second, same saucepan, same size, but this is called a double boiler. And so what I will do is I'll put water in the bottom of the saucepan. I will put the morsels, chocolate morsels in here, and they will get heated by the water and you won't scorch it. All right, and you'll see how that goes. And then you need a lid for it because you need the heat to be contained to melt those morsels. You will definitely be using a cooling rack. This toffee I make, it comes out very hot. I usually burn. I've done pretty well with myself, not burning myself. Okay, and then I will be using a measuring cup, a measuring spoon, 2 different size rubber scrapers, and a whisk. That will end up the equipment and ingredients for making butternut crunch. I filled the saucepan with water, and I will be putting the morsels in here. Now, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that it's not sitting on the water. Okay, the water shouldn't be in it because then the water will start bubbling out and seep into the chocolate. Once you add water to that chocolate, you've ruined it. So it shouldn't be floating up over the side of it. I'm going to dump a little bit out real quick. A little more than I think I should have. All right, so you probably can't tell, but I dropped some out there. So now what I'm going to do is I have made this recipe. I'm going to make several batches. So when it comes to the chocolate morsels, I don't measure them out. I just melt some, and as I need more, I throw more in. And I tend to make this candy all day long because it's so much to set up and so much to take down. So I try to only do it once a year. So anyway, that's why I'm not measuring the chocolate morsels exactly. I'm just gonna pour some in and let them melt slowly while I get the other ingredients coming up to speed. All right, so as I said, I'm just gonna pour some in for now. I don't put the whole thing in because I don't want it to be heating up all day long, so that's why I put in a little bit at a time. So the next step, since I need 2 saucepans going, I'm going to put this on the back burner here, and I got this hot. I mean, not hot. I got this wet. Get this off here. I'm going to turn the heat on here. I'm going to put a lid on the morsels, and then I'm just going to turn it to. I'm going to put on like a 3, kind of a medium low, and that way the water will heat up and slowly melt it. Because the next step, what you're doing is I'm making the toffee portion. This is the candy portion of it, and this is the toffee, the hard portion of it. So let me gather up those ingredients. Be right back. The recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar. Oops, that's not my cup. Oh, I was baking before. I left my cup over here. I made another dish before this. Let me get my cup. Alrighty, and then what I'm going to use is a smaller cup to fill the larger cup. And that way I don't spill a lot. That's one. This one I will do a flat edge on again because the top is too narrow. I don't want to get salt, which I'm doing, or sugar everywhere, which I'm already doing, so I don't know if that was the right thing. Alrighty, so 1 cup of sugar. Oh, gotta wipe off the stove before I start, or that will burn, and it's hard to clean and it'll smell. Okay, it also includes 1 stick of butter, which is a 1/2 cup. So right here is a 1/2 cup of butter, and that's what it calls for. I've let it sit out. You don't have to, because it's going to melt down fully. I just took it out because it melts faster that way. As I said, I've been preparing several cooking activities today, so okay, I'd already had things out. All right, and that goes to there. All right, and then the next ingredient is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So it's not any special salt, just regular salt. Again, I'm going to pour it over here in case I spill over. I don't ruin the ingredients in the container. Okay, so that's about, or that is a 1/2 teaspoon. Put that in. And then I've already pre-measured this, and it's kind of hard to tell when I'm holding it, but whoops, wrong side. There's a metric side, and then there's the ounces. So it's hard to tell, but I am doing a 1/4 cup of water right here. So that goes into the pot as well. And we start to heat that up. But first, I have to clean up my mess. Okay, clean that mess up. Normally I don't prepare over the stove like that, especially when I have other things going, but I've run out of kitchen space. This takes a lot of space, cooling and preparing and cooking. So now this just needs to start melting. Once the butter starts to melt, I'll stir it. I will be using a whisk to stir this, and this becomes well, it's a melted sugar water basically, with grease in it too, but it burns when it's hot, but it also, when you put it on things, it gets very sticky and it hardens. So you want to make sure that as you use equipment and you're finished with it, to put in some hot soapy water so it's easy cleaning. And that is just my personal advice. All right, so this right now is just the butter and the sugar. I have the heat. It doesn't look like it's on by very much. Let's see here. Oops, did I go the wrong way? Yes. Well, no, I didn't. I didn't turn it on. So let's get this on. This is the center burner. And I'm just going to put that on like a medium to start. And let that start melting in. And we can check in on the chocolate. See what that's up to. So it really hasn't melted much yet. You can see a little bit. Yeah, let me get out of the way here. There we go. Okay, so you can see a little bit is melting down. See, that's getting smooth there. That's just the start, but this way it doesn't get burned. Okay, so now what I do is let things get hot, melt, whatever they're supposed to do, and I get other things prepared for when the candy, the toffee is finished, because once that toffee finishes, you have to work with it very fast because it will set up, it'll get hard, and you don't want that until you're ready. So let me show you what I start doing to prepare for making the final product. So all the butter, water, sugar, and salt all melt together, and it's going to be coming to a boil. And I'll show you how that goes over time. But as I told you, I do other things. So right now, when the toffee is hot, I'll be spraying it onto this cookie sheet. And you want to be able to have it so the toffee slides off easily. It doesn't stick to it. I told you how sticky it can be. So I just spray a little Pam over it. That's ready. I also have over here my the pecan chips, because that's what I'll sprinkle over the chocolate once. The way it works, it's a layer of toffee, layer of melted chocolate, and then sprinkled with nuts. So that's what these are for. Let's go check and see how our toffee mixture is going. So it's melting quite nicely. I haven't touched it. I'm talking to you, getting things set up. You can see the butter's melting. So it's definitely hot enough to melt the butter, and the sugar, it's all blended in. Now it's gonna come to a boil, and I end up just leaving this in because I'm here. I'm gonna turn it in so nobody can hit it. Handles in, nobody hits them. And sometimes I do angles just so you can see it on the camera. It may not be in the right place, but I'm always the one in the kitchen. Anyway, we're gonna let this keep going. Now that it's melted that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn up the heat a little bit more than that. I don't wanna burn it. In my recipe, and I will type this all up and make it available to you, they talk about getting the temperature to 285, some of that crackling. I tried making this one time with a candy thermometer and burnt the toffee. So I just use it because the woman who taught me, thank you, Margie, she taught us by sight and smell. So it is now starting to boil a little bit. So I'll be stirring it more often because I don't want it to scorch. I want to make sure it stays nice and hot, but it doesn't scorch. And this takes quite some time. I don't know, maybe if I kept at this temperature, maybe 5-7 minutes. I'm not even exactly sure, because I do know when I make it in batches. So I would be having this one cooking, and I'd already be melting another saucepan of ingredients to melt. So once this one goes on the pan and is in the refrigerator cooling, then I could do another one on another sheet. But since I'm trying to teach this, I want to make sure you see what goes on. All right, I need to get a little bit over here more with you. I want to be able to see what's going on in the pot here. Okay. Yes. Sorry. I turn it this way. So I do, I've got to have at least the pan here. And so it's frothing up a little bit as well. You can see the steam coming off of it. And what's going to happen is as it's going through basically the cooking and then the beginning of burning, this starts to turn darker and darker. They become a light tan and then more of a golden brown. And it almost has a little bit of a bitter, nutty smell to it. As it's getting to that point where I'm going to take it out and pour this mixture on the greased cookie sheet. So you can see the bubbles are getting, it's getting more ferocious, the bubbling is. And again, you never want to burn yourself with this. It gets hot. I usually burn myself when I'm spreading the toffee out. I dip a knuckle or something into it. It's like, oh. So I just always would leave aloe in the kitchen just to cake it with aloe throughout the day, and then it'll be pretty good. And like I said, you don't have to stir it constantly. But you do not walk away from this. I mean, not really even in the kitchen, because it turns quickly. As it starts to, it's getting foamier, it's rising up some. That's why I'm going to keep stirring it. Got to keep mixing them together. And as it's getting more bubbly, you'll start seeing the color change. And I can smell, it's definitely still smelling buttery. I don't think I'm really smelling a little sweet to it. Not heavy. The butter right now is what's the heaviest smell. But even that's not full-on melted butter smell. It's quite ferociously burning. So as I say, I don't like anybody in the kitchen. When I'm making this, I don't want anybody in the kitchen. I don't want to be distracted, or if something spills. And if there's anybody who else makes a type of candy, let me know. I'm debating whether I should buy the silicone forms, molds, to try to make hot chocolate bombs. But that looked pretty tedious too, pretty, labor intensive. Okay, let's see what's happening back over here with the chocolate. Let's see. So if you can see that, I've moved this so much. Okay. That's the chocolate now, so you can see it's getting more melted. And this doesn't have to melt right away. This doesn't have to be fully melted, but you can see it's on its way to melting. I gotta get back to the hot toffee. And so that's good over there. Okay. And let's put the lid back on there. So, all right, so the butter and the sugar have definitely melded together, and the water, it's all kind of one thing. So it's a light yellow right now. And if you can hear it, it's bubbling hard. This recipe originally called for putting chocolate on both sides of the toffee once it's laid out. You have to flip it. But I found it was too much chocolate for me, so I only do one side, which is why I said I have to rewrite the recipe, because I've made changes to how I'm showing it to you. And you don't want to put this on high, because that's it'll go quick from almost there to, being scorched, and you don't want that because you can't use it. And you don't want to take this off too early, because it doesn't get the crack to it. You need it to get to the crackling stage so it snaps. I feel I can see at the edges. I don't know if you can with I've been looking through the camera, but I feel like the edges are starting to get a little more goldy looking, a little more brown to them. It's definitely thickening up. Always hold on to the pan with this. And you also get very hot standing by the stove, but I also recommend long sleeves, long pants, shoes. So if you get splattered, you're not fully, your skin's not fully exposed. And this is the longest part of the process. I think I figured out it takes about an hour from start to finish of getting it to the, into the pan, starting to melt, and to where it's, I've put the nuts on it and it's going in for the last chill. It's getting very foamy. And then when I stir it, it's because all the air is getting in it. And when I stir it, it kind of deflates back down again. It does take a bit of time to get it to the browning, the crackling stage. And just so you know, what I'll be doing is once it gets to the right smell, the right consistency, the right color, I'll take that and bring it over to the cookie sheet. And I'm hoping I can get the camera switched over there so that you can watch. I pour it on the cookie sheet, and then when it gives it a minute to cool, I spread it out. Also smell the chocolate. So since it's melted already, I'm going to put the chocolate on low just to keep it warm. Chocolate is, oh, I need to move this over here for a moment. Everything is hot, hot, hot. And again, recover that chocolate. It's almost getting more and more to that stage. So it's starting to get like a golden hue to it now. Remember the beginning with the butter in there? It was that bright yellow butter color. And if I let it sit when it's boiling, you can see a little bit of that coming back still. And this is a dish you're preparing that you definitely have to stay with. Can't be doing laundry or homework or talking to your friends. I wish you could feel it has just a little tug to it. That's how I can tell it's kind of thickening up, because when I say it's a little slurry more. It's not all liquid, it's getting thicker. I'm starting to smell more of the, I just turned off the chocolate. That's boiling and it doesn't need to. I'll keep that water hot but settled. I'm starting to smell the not burn, but starting to get to the crackling. And can you see it's getting a little browner. Let's see if we can see that coming. And what you'll see is that the bubbles start getting darker first. You'll see that in the, see they're getting darker. And so this is now heading more towards that crackling stage, which I could never decide how to do it with the temperature, but so see the color starting to change. A light tan. So if anybody knows what toffee smells like, or you've had maybe some toffee candy, it's a slightly, not in a burnt bad way, but it's just a slight burn to the sugar and butter. And it gives that toffee. And then when I spread this out, I know some people go, people like it when it's real thin. They don't like when the toffee's too thick. They like it when it's real thin. So I always work to get it thinner and thinner without it pulling apart. See, it's kind of pulling itself off the bottom of the pan too when I scrape. Getting definitely thicker. So, and this is the reason why you have to have your pan prepared and the equipment over there that you need. And actually what I may do, since that chocolate is already melted, before this gets too boily, I think I'm going to bring the chocolate over there so it's ready. I leave it on a hot pad so it doesn't hurt the table, even though my table's wood. But I'm going to take this off here. I'm just going to bring this over. All right, and back. You see the swirls in it? That's it, getting to the caramelization. Ooh, I can definitely smell it now. Yep. So this is where you really have to watch it and stay with it, because it'll continue turning quickly. Oh, I need to bring my chocolate spread, my chocolate spatula. Okay. And this is why it's very time consuming. This is the part that takes the longest, as you can see. And see how the toffee is on this? It hardens. Now, if I was to pull this off and go, oh yeah, it's brown, it's good enough, that would not crack. It hasn't gotten to the crackling stage where it's going to snap. And that's not, toffee's not good like that. The whole point of it is it has a little crisp to it. So you have to get to that right color. And trying to tell people how to make this was very difficult, describing it. So I'm very excited about making a video. And I used pecans on this. I think Margie originally had used walnuts maybe. I grew up, my mom was from the South, we grew up using pecans a lot. So I have crushed pecans, but you can leave it plain. You could put something else on it, I guess. Maybe you like peppermint or something, I don't know. But not in the toffee. The toffee is just the toffee. You add that to the chocolate after you've spread it on. Ooh. Drink the water here. Okay, see, it's even getting darker. All right. It's definitely getting close to it being finished. See the color there? You need to have good light too, because the light over the food needs to look the same as when you pour it out. If think it looks dark and it wasn't dark enough, and you go pour it out and it wasn't to the crackle stage yet, then your toffee's kind of ruined. Okay, here we are, boiling up, heavy boil. Okay. It's almost like with every stir, I let it come to a boil, and like with every stir, it gets a shade darker. So we're definitely closer to being finished or getting to that crackling stage than we were just a minute ago. In the sense that it's going to come faster than that. This is getting close. Not there yet. And reminder, when you finish doing this, the pan, you should fill it with hot soapy water. And if you're going to make more, start with a whole new saucepan, and then when that one's used, take out the one that was soaking in hot soapy water, because this is a bear to get off. Okay, I'm definitely smelling that toffee. The smell is pretty close. The color's nearly there. Okay. Let it sit for a minute while I contemplate its color. It's not quite there, but it's getting very close. And what I'm probably going to do is move cameras so I can show you how I pour this out, because it's almost there. This is what the final boiling product looks like. I'm going to be pouring it on this, the greased, remember it needs to be greased, and I'm pouring it on. You have to be very careful. Okay, because you're going to be spreading it all out. So, let's see. Got it coming off the wrong way. So I have one rubber scraper I use for the toffee, and then I have one I use for the chocolate. You can't mix them up. I mean, you don't want to mix them because that's how you're... Oops, just ran into the camera. Okay. So get as much as you can out of this. And that's why you need that rubber scraper. It really is good. And you have to work quick because this, as I told you, the toffee sets up. So you want to get all of it out. Okay. Put this. Now this is going to sit for just a second, not very long, but it just has to firm up a teeny bit. So I'm going to wait a second, because if I start trying to play with it now, it won't, it'll just slide. So I'm putting everything I just used, except for my rubber scraper, into hot water. Because, whoops, I'm starting to slide over here. So now, what I do, when this pan gets very hot, you have to be careful with it. You are moving, you want to spread this as much as you can over this cookie sheet, okay? And you don't want the little splits like that. So this is just a matter of me spreading it out. See, it's a little bit warm, cooler there. So it makes it easier to spread. So that's going to be my trick, is to spread this. You just have to kind of fair. And when you're spreading it, you have to make sure you get enough out of the middle. You don't want to be the middle real thick. I was telling you, people like it when it's thin, but this you have to be very careful with. It is hot. So my goal, whether I make it or not, is to get this to reach all the edges. Not the exact edge, not quite there, but stretch it out. But you see how it's stretching with, as it's starting to get a little bit firmer, but you have to work with it fast or else you lose it. You lose the stretchiness. I'll be honest, I'm out of practice. I haven't made this in a year. Okay, I gotta get these parts over here. Now see, this seems thick to me over here, so I'm gonna pull some over. Get it all spread out nicely. And you want to try to avoid any gaps in it. Just like that stretching. That's a nice job of it. Let's get this to stretch some more. That's gotten too cooled off, so let's get that out of there. I'll eat that later. But definitely be careful. You do not want to burn with it. Okay. This is also a skill, learning when to manipulate it. I don't feel like I'm doing the best job today, but okay, I'm gonna move it more over here. Ooh. So what's happening is this will sit out on a tray and cool. You cannot put the chocolate on here until this is fully cooled. Very hot version of Play-Doh. There's silly putty. Okay, and nobody's gonna see any of this. This is all covered with chocolate. So I'm gonna get this a little bit thinner. I know that center is pretty thick. I'm trying to get that less. Because when you'll see, this all gets broken up. All broken up. So like, as it's cooling, kind of spread it out. This one side stretches so nicely. What I'm trying to do is just pull it as far apart as I can so the middle just isn't a big clump of toffee. And you can see it's firming up, so I'm not worried about it sliding off the pan. And it likes to pull itself back out sometimes before it's fully cooled, so that's why you can play with it some. So it's setting up pretty heavy here. This side is real movable, but there's no more places to go with it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let this cool off. It took about 30 minutes to get this the chocolate firm enough so that I could break it and it wouldn't get too soft in my hands, but you're still working with it quickly. And what I do is just try to get like a little edge to it where you can bend it a little bit, get your finger under it, and see how it just kind of breaks up. That's what you're going to be doing. You just put it in. Let me come from the other angle. Okay, and you're just going to break it up. I'm putting on a piece of parchment paper, so because the nuts do fall off as you're working with it, so I try not to handle it too much. But as you can see, this is why it doesn't really matter how pretty it looks. It's all being broken. Some people call this bark toffee, so it may have different names. But I know it is a guaranteed favorite. Definitely guaranteed favorite. Ugh. All right, so I continue along breaking up the toffee that way. Then what I do is I get a bag that's going to be for a gift, and I put however much I decide I want to put in there. I have different size bags. Okay. And then I just put it in the bag. And after this, your hands will be a little melty. Melted chocolate on it, but that's okay. And obviously you do not want to put these in near a heater or someplace hot, because that chocolate will melt. Oops. Last little bit. And what I do, I'll be honest with you, I like ice cream too. When I'm finished with my bag, there's always like crumbs like this to it. I like putting the last little bits of it on top of ice cream. I prefer vanilla, but it's also good on chocolate ice cream too. Make sure to get everybody there. Okay, and then what I would do is, my hands are kind of too messy to do it now. I get a little tie, and I tie it off. This is my final product. I've made 2 gift bags of my toffee to give to family or friends. You can make the sizes as large and as small as you want. When I used to make one serving of it for everybody, so that was a whole batch, I would be making like 30 to 40 batches over a couple weeks. So I've learned to make the batches smaller, or the portions I give out smaller. But again, you can make it whatever size you want, spread out as thin or as few people as you want. But I'm telling you, people love it. They ask for it all the time. So I hope you try to make it. I hope it turns out well for you, and enjoy.